Shalev in Washington. You're live with Eric and Lloyd.
Hi.
Hey, what did you want to talk about today?
I have a common theme that tends to come up with some of my theist family, and I seem to have a hard time having the conversation, so I'm hoping I can get some ideas from you.
Okay.
Okay. So I can have this conversation pretty well with my Christian family, but I have a hard time having the same conversation with my Jewish family.
Okay.
So typically we'll get into things of how can we have a good God when there's so much evil in the world, and then they bring up the they bring up the concept of, oh, well, there's evil in the world because of free will.
Okay.
And I can do that conversation with Christianity because I grew up with that. I didn't really grow up with Judaism.
Sure, you can't use the heaven example.
Oh, you're with it. Huh?
You can't use the heaven example.
No.
So, well, there are a couple ways to go. Do you want to jump in on this?
So, free will. No, you go. I almost made it all the way to the end of the show, sounding remotely coherent, and I've fallen apart.
You've been fantastic.
Lloyd.exe is broken down.
We're saving you for AXP.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, so...
I'll riff off you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's say you have a child, and you want to give that child autonomy. Does that mean that you would let them play in traffic?
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
I mean... Okay. You could not say, and I've heard the argument said, well, if God were to do anything to stop that, it would impinge upon your free will. But we live in a physical world that has rules. I can't jump up and fly like Superman. That is also impinging on my free will, isn't it? I can't breathe underwater.
I think so. I think it would be awesome if I could fly.
Right? It would be fucking amazing. And hey, wouldn't that be a better free will to have? And so if we're putting, that in perspective, then I think that you can absolutely point out that they can think whatever they want about God, but that God set some pretty fucked up lines, because what they did is they lined out and said, you know what, I'm definitely going to still allow child cancer. I'm still going to allow suffering and pain. What if just a skinned knee was enough, a bloody nose, right? If that was as bad as it got, that'd be pretty awesome. You'd still have free will. And how about the And you can go on these other examples. There are examples in Torah, I believe, of people denying, God being denied with evidence of that God right in front of them, isn't there? I believe we can.
There is, but that is free will, though.
Oh, so again, all the way across. Because
they're using free will, like they're using their free will to deny God.
Right.
I guess my issue with it all, and it has come to me now,
sure,
is the time element. So we're supposed to respect a God who's running this kind of twisted game where he makes this creation and he gives them free will so that they can prove how inept they are. And in order to get meaningful results from this experiment, he needs to allow thousands, well, not just thousands, but tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, depending on how old you accept humans are. This is not an elegant, in any way, shape, or form, solution for anything. I mean, how are we supposed to respect a God who would run such a twisted, messed up Sims-style experiment, creating something just to watch it fail?
You don't know the plan.
Okay.
So it could be, the reason I say that is because it could be that they're just trying to shut down the conversation. Right. And if somebody doesn't want to have a conversation, they're not going to have that conversation. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Right.
But if you are pushing and you are seeing an honest discourse, hopefully that helps. The idea about free will, knowing that God exists, is showing that God can intervene directly. And yet, what do we have? right? So
usually the conversation is basically the reason that all this terrible things happen in the world is because people have free will and people have messed everything up, and therefore that's why you have babies dying in Africa and so on and so forth.
Well, that's convenient, isn't it?
No, it's inconvenient. I'd love to skinned knee to be the worst thing that happens. I'd love for kids not to die of fucking cancer. I'd love for people not to starve and be tortured and tormented and experience assault and all of these horrible things.
What we're seeing is exactly what we would expect to see if humans weren't created by God, but in fact did evolve over hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years, depending on how far you want to go back. We are seeing exactly the sort of suffering and injustice that you would expect to see if there was no God involved, which takes us back to what we were saying earlier, that if you have an explanation for how all these things happened, and your explanation happens to be, hey, there's this toy maker in the sky who creates this game, and we're all parts of this bizarre spectacle, where is your evidence for it? So with or without heaven or the Christian angle, I can never be convinced by the free will argument.
I think the simulation example probably gives me something to go off of.
Yeah, the hard solipsism.
Have a better conversation.
And how about, I don't think that there's free will, period.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there actually is free will, but this is usually the argument that's brought up.
Sure.
Probably that wouldn't go down. Probably that wouldn't be compelling to, if you were arguing.
No,
with
I'd have to.
Jewish.
I'd have to go into
the existence of the soul and all that stuff. But just saying. But with that, I think we're going to move on. Hopefully that helped.
Yes, it did. At least gives me a direction to go with this person next time that comes up.
Who was better, Eric or me?
What?
Who was better, Eric or me, in answering your question?
Oh, okay.
Why would you do? Yeah, no. Shalev is just gently backing toward the door.
You're trying to influence her now. Who was better, Eric or me?
All right, okay.
Yep, exactly. Shalev, have a wonderful day. Thank you for calling in.
All right.
I'm trying to get some kudos there. You just cut me off.
You were making them uncomfortable.